Arthur DeFranzo joined the Army from his birthplace of Saugus, Massachusetts, in November of 1940. And by June of 1944, he was serving as a staff sergeant in the 1st Infantry Division, 18th Infantry Regiment, whose patch you can see on the screen right now. The Latin there means in all things prepared. DeFranzo would show just how well he was prepared very soon. Hello and welcome to The Ultimate Sacrifice. My name's Louis Marsh. I'm the senior pastor of River Church here in Parker, Arizona, a big history fan, and this show is dedicated to telling the true stories of the men and women who have served our country and what they've sacrificed. I hope you'll join me here each week for a factual retelling of these men's service and what they've done. And now, let's get back to the story. By June 10, 1944, DeFranzo was serving as a staff sergeant in the 1st Infantry Division, as we said. On that day, near Vaubadon, France, or something like that, again, my French pronunciation's bad, I know, he was wounded while trying to rescue an injured man from hostile fire. Despite his own injuries, he led an attack on the enemy positions and continued to advance and encourage his men, even after being hit several more times. He destroyed an enemy machine gun position just before he succumbed to his wounds. For these actions, he was posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor, and 7 months later it was presented on January 4th, 1945. DeFranzo's body was returned to the United States in 1947. He lay in state at the Saugus Town Hall from December 8th through December 11th, and he was given a military funeral at Riverside Cemetery in Saugus. Here's how his Medal of Honor citation reads, quote, "For conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of his life, above and beyond the call of duty, on June 10, 1944, now Vaubadon, France, as scouts were advancing across an open field, the enemy suddenly opened fire with several machine guns and hit one of the men. Staff Sergeant DeFranzo courageously moved out in the open to the aid of the wounded scout and was himself wounded, but brought the man to safety. Refusing aid, DeFranzo re-entered the open field and led the advance upon the enemy. There were always at least 2 machine guns bringing unrelenting fire upon him, but DeFranzo kept going, firing into the enemy, and one by one, the enemy emplacements, they became silent. While advancing, he was wounded again. Still, he continued on until he was within 100 yards of the enemy position, and even as he fell, he kept firing his rifle and waving his men forward. DeFranzo, despite his many severe wounds, suddenly raised himself up and once more moved forward in the lead of his men until he was again hit by enemy fire. In a final gesture of indomitable courage, he threw several grenades at the enemy machine gun position and completely destroyed the gun. In this action, DeFranzo lost his life, but by bearing the brunt of enemy fire and leading the attack, he prevented a delay in the assault that would have been of considerable benefit to the foe, and he made possible his company's advance with a minimum of casualties. The extraordinary heroism and magnificent devotion to duty displayed by DeFranzo was a great inspiration to all about him and is in keeping with the highest traditions of the armed forces, unquote. Now, not much is known about what DeFranzo was really like today, but what is left of his family seeks to keep his memory alive. In 2024, they met on the 80th anniversary of his death to share what they knew about their hero. 7 relatives from Saugus, a neighboring community, and southern New Hampshire gathered at the VFW Post 2346 Hall, which is named in DeFranzo's honor, and after a 15-minute ceremony recounting the soldier's role in D-Day and how he sacrificed his life on the battlefield to save the lives of his soldiers, they got together and talked about him. Most of the relatives were children of DeFranzo's siblings. As they sat at a table in the VFW hall having pastries and donuts to go with coffee and other drinks, a photo of the fallen family member they never knew was set on the table. Some of them told stories that they had heard over the years about Staff Sergeant DeFranzo. Quote, growing up, I heard the story a lot about how he was captured in North Africa and escaped, and that the guy found Arthur was a Saugus member, and he brought him back and cleaned him up, recalled Sean Walsh, 26, of Atkinson, New Hampshire. What are the odds of that kind of thing happening, he said. I do like the fact that somebody you grew up with finds you in the middle of nowhere and helps you out. One of the relatives was named Arthur DeFranzo. My father was Arthur's brother, Raymond. I was the firstborn after my uncle's death, DeFranzo said. I heard stories about him when he was in high school, and that he was a tough guy and that nobody messed with him. Sergeant DeFranzo's niece, Linda Call of Saugus, said her uncle was probably about 5'3" and weighed close to 130 pounds. Quote, he was a little guy, but brave, and people said he felt invincible and never believed he was going to die, unquote, Call said. My father used to go down to the railroad tracks to collect coal from the trains, she said. Call said her favorite story of all was the letter that Staff Sergeant DeFranzo wrote to his sister, who was Call's mom. Her name was Mary. Quote, I was going through my mother's stuff and found the flowers all dried up in a letter that Arthur sent them from England before he went to Normandy for D-Day, she said. I took the flowers with me last year, and I left them in Normandy. Call, her niece Colby, and great-niece Claire went on a special trip to France last year. There they met a war reenactor who took them on a tour of the place where DeFranzo fell on June 10th, 1944, near Valbaden. Call said that she also went to the beach where her uncle landed in the second wave between 11 o'clock and noon, and she threw the rose petals that he had picked in England before the Normandy landings. He was a 1938 graduate of Saugus High School. 2 years later, he became the first man in Saugus to volunteer for military service, according to a May 28, 1995 column in the Boston Globe by Jeremiah V. Murphy that was also included in the scrapbook that they had with them. At the age of 25, DeFranzo was also the first Saugus man to be killed in the D-Day invasion. Quote, it was Arthur DeFranzo and men like him that enabled the Allies to win World War II and to preserve our freedom, unquote, Murphy wrote in his column. He said, so the years have gone by and the memories have become misty. We should never forget Arthur DeFranzo and the men like him who served so valiantly. And so this program exists for that reason, to keep their memories alive. Very few pictures exist of Arthur. We've shown you the ones that we've been able to find here, but just because no pictures exist, that there's not a lot of information about him, doesn't take away from what he did. He was an incredibly brave man who died that we, and not just we here in America, but the people of England and France and all of Europe could be free to live the lives they choose to live. This young man died for our freedom. Let us live in such a way that that sacrifice is honored and always remembered as worthy. Till next week, I'm Louis Marsh, Senior Pastor of River Church. Thank you so much for watching. Please do me a favor and like and subscribe to this channel. It'll just take a few seconds. It doesn't cost you anything, and it's going to be a real help for us as we're trying to get this show cranked up and reaching a whole lot of people. And because we're brand new, well, that's going to take a while. So if you're out there watching this in 2025, you're on the ground floor. Thank you so much. Please help us to keep growing and to keep going. And Lord willing, I'll be back with you next week right here for another tale of American heroism on the ultimate sacrifice. So long.